Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very happy that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Stitcher Radio, Ghana, Himalaya, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Lauren Imparato. She is here to celebrate cookies are better than vegetables. We'll also be meeting a young listener from Florida. Before you invite our guest into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Riley and Milo, written by Casey Diadio. Processing death with a child is not an easy task. In fact, many people find it overwhelming, and they don't even know how to start the conversation with kids. Using books as a method of explaining loss and grief is a really effective tool for complex conversations. Riley and Milo leads young readers through the stages of grief, stages like denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. As the puppy Riley is processing the death of her best friend Milo, she explains her feelings and the impact of Milo's death on her life. This book was created to help normalize the emotions and experiences of young readers who are coping with grief and loss. Riley and Milo is available for purchase on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Books A Million. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Lucas and the Game of Chance, written by Anthony L. Mena. Lucas in the Game of Chance follows the adventures of a hero who's desperate to regain everything he's lost. He meets a magic snake who dances to his tunes and leaves gold coins in return. When Lucas gives in to a moment of pride and gambles everything he loves away to a jealous merchant, he's forced on a desperate and treacherous quest to find destiny, sun, and moon, and beg for redemption. With a good-hearted serpent, a benevolent goddess, and a flawed but determined hero, Lucas in the Game of Chance offers excitement, magic, and most of all, hope that it's never too late to make things right. You and your tweens and teens are going to love this book, Lucas in the Game of Chance. It's a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Hey, this is Jedley. I am at the Florida Parent Educator Association Convention, the homeschool convention here in Orlando, Florida. And things are just opening up. And this beautiful young woman came up to me and she said she just listened to her first episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, what's your name?
Audrey.
Audrey, thank you so much for listening. What episode did you listen to? Do you remember what book we were talking about?
Cloud Monsters.
And did you like the episode?
Yes.
You did. What did you like about what our guest Francine Piriano Davila was talking about?
About how it can interest you in clouds.
Yeah. And do you think, now you haven't read the book yet, right? Do you think that the clouds are going to be good or evil?
Good.
You think they're going to be good? That's awesome. Are there any other kind of books you love to read?
I like reading comic books and adventure books.
Ooh, okay. I know on the 31st we are interviewing 2 authors of a new graphic novel. So you want to check that out, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Hey, listen, you're here with some people. Introduce me to the rest of your family, okay?
This is my grandma.
Hey, Grandma.
Hi, this is Katie Dietz from St. Petersburg, Florida.
I love that. Look at that southern lilt.
This is my mom now.
Hi, I'm Mom.
Hey, that's Mom Robin.
This is my brother.
What's your name, buddy?
Andy.
Andy, are you having fun at the convention?
Yes.
Awesome. And who is this little princess?
Lily.
Lily, are you having fun?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. You also might want to check out a podcast I'm not on anymore, but I helped create it. It's called Solve It for Kids. And the host of the show lives in Jacksonville.
Wow.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It was so much fun meeting Audrey and her family down at the Florida Homeschool Convention back in May. I would love to meet you and your family. We're going to be live at the Buttonwood Park Zoo in New Bedford, Massachusetts on August 6, 2022. Come on down for a great day at the zoo, catch my magic show, maybe win some books. Have a lot of fun. It's a beautiful, beautiful zoo. We're going to have an awful lot of fun, and we would love to meet you and perhaps feature you on a future episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Join us right now from the beautiful state of New York. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut children's picture book. It's called Cookies Are Better Than Vegetables. Please welcome to the show, Lauren Imparato. Hey, Lauren, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm certainly all for the idea that cookies are better than vegetables.
Who isn't?
I know. Growing up, it's like, but Mom, it's delicious, and that stuff isn't.
Completely. And I have to say that I love broccoli, but I can't turn down a fresh baked chocolate chip cookie ever.
Now, I have to ask, we have this big debate here in our home in Boston. Are you a soft cookie fan, or do they have to be hard?
I'm a soft cookie fan for sure.
There you go. My wife needs them hard. If there's any softness in it, she doesn't want anything to do with it.
That's like my husband. So they can eat cookies together and we can eat cookies together.
There you go. When the kids were growing up, we would have to make 2 batches and, take some out and scoop them out when they're melting in your hand. It was just wonderful. I was reading that cookies are better than vegetables. I'm going to ask you to tell us about the book, but I was reading that this book was inspired by your friendship with your grandmother.
Absolutely. My grandmother, who everybody and myself called Chata, was my best friend. And she actually said cookies are better than vegetables herself. She'd had a very debilitating stroke and had not eaten or spoken really in about over 3 months. And I refused to give up on her turning the corner on that. So every night I would go into her room with a plate of fresh baked cookies. And one night she grabbed one off the plate, and she didn't have much movement in her arms at that point either. Just grabbed one off the plate, shoved the whole thing in her mouth. It was the first thing she'd eaten in months. We all thought she was going to choke, and she didn't. And then took another one off the plate, but this time she held it up in the air with her thumb and her index finger right in front of her face and said, "Cookies are better than vegetables." And then ate that one, and then we had what we called the cookie party every night, just having memories and chats and music and whatnot. So this book is definitely an ode to her, but more importantly to all the lessons she taught me throughout my life.
Wonderful. So let's jump into the book. Tell us about the book.
So the book is a combination values journal and children's book. The children's book is really for all ages. We've had 1-year-olds read them and 14-year-olds read them. Mm-hmm. It's really about values. We talk so much about gratitude, which is really quite static and passive. It's about the values that you need to instill in yourself and in your children to be a good person. And the book is all inspired by things that Chata told me throughout my life. 98% of the lines were something that along the course of my life, my careers, my moves, she told me in one way directly or another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. It is so important to impart values to our kids, and that is one of the things that I think is overlooked when we talk about reading with our kids. We always talk about, read with your kids. They learn how to read. They build the vocabulary. They can figure out and kind of imagine how to deal with different problems. But it's a wonderful way to instill values in our kids and have conversations about what we think is important and about how we think it's the best way to live life.
Absolutely. And I'm really lucky that I grew up in a family where, not knowing it, everything kind of centered around values. Every conversation, every action is centered around values. And now actually I'm pregnant now. I wrote this book 2 years ago, even though it just came out. not knowing I would ever have a kid, or, thinking I would have a kid. And now that I'm about to have a kid and this book has come out at the same time, I just think it is like, wow, this is a really cool handbook for me to remember. And for as this child grows throughout their life and I grow as a parent, to remember these really important things: integrity, kindness, helping others, being patient, working hard, getting back up again, believing in family and tradition. These really things that I think as a society we've kind of forgotten about.
I'm not sure if we've forgotten about them or if people are afraid to mention them.
Actually, that's a really good point. Maybe people are afraid to mention them, but with the whole, I don't know, cover of cookies, maybe we can start talking about them again.
Yeah, and because I think, I don't want to use the word woke because it's pejorative, but, I think a lot of the reasons people are, they don't want to say something that will offend somebody or trigger somebody. I think the values that we're talking about are age-old values, and I think that they shouldn't trigger anybody or hurt anybody's feelings. It's talking about being respectful of ourselves, of each other's, and learning how to live together with one another. Absolutely.
And just, a tangible example from the book is that I've had a few different career shifts, from Wall Street to running my first company, and now in my second and third company. And in my first company, I remember, speaking with my grandmother, who I spoke to every single day. We spoke on the phone every day. And she always loved my hard work, and she was my biggest cheerleader and champion. But she did tell me to remember to work without being a working machine, because what's the point of working if you become mean? And she told me that literally verbatim. This was many years ago. And it stuck with me. It was sort of her way of telling me, hey, you're being a, why are we on the phone and you're talking to me like this? But this was the message that she was giving me in a really sweet way. And I've incorporated in Cookies Are Better Than Vegetables to try and start to have these discussions in a way that are right for our future generations of society.
What a gift that you had her in your life. And
Yes,
that she was there.
absolutely.
I think we all need somebody in our lives. Here in Boston, we use the expression, is able to give you a dope slap when you're not acting right. Just kind of right up the back of your head, like, wake up, let's go, take a look at what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think what was great about Chata is that, and I try and make, Chata is the superhero of the book. And it's an adventure story where the kid goes around, and when they complete all the values, they get a cookie and they get a superhero cape, just like Chata has. And what was great about Chata and great about the superhero in the book is that they might slap you around and say something to you like that, but they also lead with positivity. No is no, but believing that you can is the most important thing.
Yeah. And, your relationship with your grandmother reminds me a lot of my relationship with my grandmother, who's also my best friend. She'd ride in the back of my motorcycle, and we'd go to the WWE together and all sorts of crazy things. And the reason I was willing to accept her advice and her criticisms is because she was so positive, because I knew that she was my biggest supporter. And I think
agree.
if we, as parents, if we are in that position where we're positive with our kids and we let them know we believe in them, and we're offering this suggestion, we're offering this correction because we know that you can do better.
Yeah, and I think I had that luxury as well, where I told Chata more about my life than anybody else besides my husband probably, and I felt comfortable doing that. And we want kids to do that, but also to make sure that they know that there's a growth ahead. It's not that they know everything, or we all know everything at any point in life. I don't know anything at 40, almost 42. I don't know everything, and I think it's important for kids to know as well.
Yeah. So I'm guessing the reason you decided to write this book and become a children's author is because you were just kind of bored, running a business. You had all this time on your hands.
Well, it's the funniest thing. A friend asked me, actually, they bought the book for their children the other day. What inspired me to write a children's book? A little bit like you're asking, and I hadn't thought about it because I was actually on an airplane. So I live normally in New York, where I am now. But my grandmother was with my parents in California, where she lived. So for those months that she was recovering from her stroke and then ultimately passed away, I had relocated to California. And I was on a flight between New York and California to deal with some business in New York. And it just came out of me, to be honest. I just started typing it in an email to myself. And that is about 90% of what the book is now. And when I got back to California, as I sat by my grandmother's side for, 8-10 hours a day, I would read it out loud to her and hold her hand. And when she would squeeze my hand, because she wasn't that mobile, when she would squeeze my hand, I would take it as the phrase, the paragraph, or the page was done. Mm-hmm. And so, and I didn't, it was just like a thing that happened, and then I sat with it for quite a long time, a year. And then I found, I said I wanted to make it into something. I didn't know what. And I found an illustrator whose best friend is also their grandmother, Karina Busquets. And we worked together to bring the illustrations and the whole thing to life. And that's when I decided it was time to really turn this into the book it should be.
Wonderful. What a neat story.
Yeah, thank you.
And what a blessing to have been able to have this wonderful co-writer with you as you were creating the book.
Yes, I mean, Chata was definitely a co-writer of many adventures in my life. Yeah. And I would be at a concert in Madrid, and back in the time of Blackberries and Nokias, and I would put the phone on speakerphone so she could hear the music that I was listening to. I don't even know if she could hear it or not, but we were connected that deeply. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Isn't it so, I wish everybody has the opportunity to develop a friendship, maybe not with their grandma, but just that one person in their life that you just want to be a part of every moment of your life, even if it's just being on the other end of the phone, listening to music with us.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a luxury. Yeah. I always knew I was lucky. Because also all my friends, if we had a friendship with Chata, they all wanted to talk to Chata. She was the most popular person in the house. But I know how lucky I am now, especially that she's passed away.
Yeah. And this must be exciting or perhaps terrifying, becoming a parent.
Yeah, it was not necessarily in the plan, but it happened. And maybe it was Chata from up above making it happen. And it's actually really incredible timing. And we actually framed a few copies of the book for the nursery, some of our favorite photos or pages, I should say, and illustrations and lessons. And it's going to be cool that this little kid, like it or not, is going to have Chata looking over them in a sort of metaphorical way, or them looking at Chata every day.
Yeah. Well, my grandmother passed away. I don't know if I told this story in the podcast. My grandmother passed away before my daughter was born. She did get a chance to meet my son. In fact, she had told me forever, she goes, I'm not going anywhere until I meet your first kid. And that she was right. And she passed when he was about a year old. And we were all together when she passed. But I remember telling my grandmother when we were expecting, she said, what are you going to name the baby? And I said, well, if it's a boy, we're going to name it Christopher. And if it's a girl, we're going to name her Alejandra. And my grandmother said, what? And I said, if it's a girl, we're going to name her Alejandra. And she said, what? I'm going to call it Sally. I'm like, great. Whatever you want. Sally's fine. Well, 3 years later, my daughter is born, and sometime after that, when she started talking and she had all these dolls in her room, we went into her and I goes, what's this dolly's name? Sally.
No way.
What about that doll? Sally. She named every doll Sally.
Wow.
And my wife just looked at me and she said, oh my goodness, she's been reborn.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely sounds like it. Absolutely.
So now that you've written your first children's book, do you plan on writing more?
Yeah, I actually have a vision now that this has come out the way I've liked it and the response has been so great, to create actually a series of Better Than Vegetables book, all based around values. The values are deep quite away. So, cookies are better than vegetables, but there's a lot of other foods that one could argue are better than vegetables as well. Mm-hmm. This one really is about overall values. And I have sort of a schematic for how the rest of the values would come out, all again inspired by lessons from Chata and this little kid being the protagonists in the book.
That's wonderful, wonderful. If there's one lesson from the book that is your favorite, and I know that's silly asking, but if there's one lesson that that you want to make sure that everybody grabs onto, what would it be?
And if I tear up right now, Chata was the biggest lover of life ever. And it's really, there's a couple different references in the book about this love of life, and it's, love life and it will love you back.
Wow.
And you only have one life. And so don't ever let anybody buy it.
I love that. Love life and it will love you back. That's
She said that a lot.
Those are really, really wise words. And that's a beautiful bow, I think, that we can put on this interview. Lauren, where can we go to find out more about you and find out more about Cookies Are Better Than Vegetables?
Well, you can go to cookiesarbetterthanvegetables.com. And then you can also there go to, the book is on Amazon, but that cookiesarbetterthanvegetables.com can also take you to the book directly on Amazon.
We've had a wonderful time speaking to the co-author of Cookies Are Better Than Vegetables, Lauren Imparato. Lauren, thank you so much for being with us, and good luck with your baby.
Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Ryan Jacobson. He'll be here to tell us all about his series of Choose Your Path, Choose Your Adventure books. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to help you celebrate your book with the world. There's so many ways we can help the world know about your book. You can be a guest here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's fun. It's easy. It doesn't cost a thing. And it gives you the chance in a long-form conversation to tell you the world all about your book. You can learn how to be a guest by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Clicking on the author's Click Here button and scrolling on down to be a guest. Oh, right underneath be a guest on that drop-down menu is information about our Certified Great Read program. Our Certified Great Read panel, if they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read, letting families know that your book deserves a place on their family library. Oh, and right underneath the Certified Great Read information, you can find out about our monthly promotion program. We're really, really excited. Check this out. If you decide to take part in our August promotion program, we'll celebrate your book with commercials on the podcast. We will celebrate your book through messages to our over 100,000 social media followers. We'll display your book on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. And we will have your book on display with us at the Buttonwood Park Zoo on August 6th. So many different ways to celebrate your book, different platforms, different audiences, and it's a bargain. Check it all out, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the author's Click Here button and scroll on down to the various services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, the person who thinks cookies are better than vegetables, Lauren Imparato. Also want to thank our sponsors, Riley and Milo, written by Cassie Diadio. And, of course, Lucas and the Game of Chance, a Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, written by Anthony L. Manna. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Brady, Nicole Bell Castro, and Mirabella Q, Rain Pan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.